Debaters, are you ready?
Yeah.
Judges, are you ready?
Haha. So for the last time today, I get to say, allez, debate!
Hi everyone. First of all, what's the good distance here with the microphone? Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Just so I have someone to look at and don't get overwhelmed, the judges, could you raise your hands briefly? Hi guys. Thanks so much. Okay. So before I start, I just want to thank everyone for coming here today and making today's debate possible. As always, thank the Windsor team for making such an unbelievably awesome invitational. Thank my awesome opponents for being up here, all the judges for judging, and my partner Eli for supporting me for 3 days, 3 years, ever since that first round when I made my enforcer of my tax plan the IRA instead of the IRS. Eli, Bosmag, Torba, custom. Okay, starting my time now. The greatest extinction in the history of planet Earth was wrought by something that didn't seem very big at all. It was wrought by a microbe. It's about this big. You can see my fingers are touching. It was literally that small. And it was very simple. It was a self-replicating organism. And all it knew how to do is make a decision on its own without anyone telling it what to do. All it was a little bit of power. And it only did one thing. It turned a bunch of atmospheric gases into oxygen. And oxygen, it turned out, was poisonous to every living being on Earth at the time. It only took 1,000 years or so, which is pretty incredible on that basis, for every single thing on the planet to die. And we are all standing here in this room today because a microbe decided that oxygen was better than nitrogen. So as I start off my debate today talking about why artificial intelligence is a threat, I want to focus in on that very simple truth, that artificial intelligence is a thing that makes decisions. But it's not a thing that has power, but it's not good at making those decisions at all. So the resolution today is, excuse me, that artificial intelligence poses a greater threat than potential benefit to humanity. That's the affirmation we define artificial intelligence as computer programs or machines which are trusted to make decisions on their own. That's a simulation of human intelligence. In other words, that they're not under direct human control. So like right now, for example, drones are piloted by a guy with a joystick or a PS3 controller or whatever. An AI drone would be one that can fly itself and maybe even pick its own targets, although that's not necessarily the case. And what I want to be clear here on this debate is that these things already exist. They have existed for a while, and they're already a threat to the world as we know it. We're also going to be defining this in terms of from now to the foreseeable future, in that maybe like 2100 or so, in the time we could reasonably make predictions, because otherwise it might be a little bit unfair. And then finally, the value criterion, of course, will be net benefits to all human beings, so whoever can prove that in fact it's going to be more beneficial versus not to human society as a whole. Now let's jump right in. Contention number one is that the greatest threat of extinction in the world that humanity has ever faced is this invention of artificial intelligence. As Stephen Hawking said, AI may be society's best production, but it also may be human society's last one. The reason why this is pretty simple. For one thing, regulation usually follows long behind the new technology. We saw that with the Industrial Revolution back in the day, when the pretty far back day, in which new technologies and new ways of doing business, it took 30 or 40 years by the time they were real hard for public society to get interested in regulation to catch up. Meanwhile, technology expands very, very rapidly. Moore's law means that computer processing power doubles every 18 months or so. The result is that we aren't going to regulate this until we made a mistake. And even if we did, the truth is that this breadth and size of the world and the amount of actors in it makes regulation almost impossible. And the truth is, with something as powerful as AI, it only takes one mistake. Let me show you what I mean. In 1980, the Soviet Union decided to install what's called a dead man's switch on Moscow. They realized that all their nuclear infrastructure was coming to one city. And you know, once the city got nuked, they might be in real trouble, right? They wouldn't be able to tell their nuclear bombs to go off. So believe it or not, the Soviet Union set up a system that would automatically trigger if a nuclear launch was detected on hitting Moscow, and without human intervention, tell all of Soviet Russia's nuclear missiles to launch immediately at the United States, as well as the rest of the U.S. allies. This is interesting, because when we look at nuclear launch systems and things like that, in the United States alone, there were 3 instances during the Cold War in which Norad detected an all-out nuclear launch on the United States, one of them because of the failure of a 50-cent transistor somewhere in the computer, and each time we were barely managed to realize that something was up. One time, we didn't launch a retaliation because the Secretary of State, the President Carter, was having a moral issue on whether or not to tell his wife to wake up before the nuclear bombs hit Washington. And so ultimately, this sort of issue has the power to destroy our entire world if we mess it up. Another example, the famous self-replicating scenario. The truth is that an object which makes a decision for itself to, for example, clean up oil spills by transmuting oil or like dealing with oil and breaking it down into better products, that's a self-replicating machine. It doesn't take human organs. And it could very, very easily mess up. For example, something that converts oil can very easily move on to converting plastics and therefore destroy some of the bases of human civilization. A scenario that has been very convincingly postulated by futurists like Mikio Kaku, who have pointed out this is an absolutely crucial danger to humankind. A single runaway system wouldn't have to be very intelligent, wouldn't have to be very prevalent, but just like the humble microbes could destroy the foundations of modern society in a couple of days or weeks. Another great example, the flash crash of 2009, when the stock market was trusted to computers, which would make trades on milliseconds incredibly rapidly. In 2009, the whole US stock market collapsed over the course of 3 hours and then popped back up again. We don't know why. We never figured that one out. We're right now crossing our fingers it will never happen again, and next time the AIs that run our stock market will also bring it back up afterwards. The truth is that the more we have AIs which are powerful and useful, the more we will connect our society to them. And the more we connect our society to them, the more it only takes one mistake to destroy that society, just like a globalized society with airplanes can be taken out by one single virus spore. So ultimately, AIs are the biggest danger that humankind has ever faced because we are willingly giving them control over all the power that we have and not giving them the responsibility or even the sentience to really know how to use it. The second point is that AI would distribute power to extremists. This is really important as well. AI means that people have massive leverage and power over things. So they can go right ahead and, for example, looking at things like the flash crash, it wouldn't take a very smart program or a very complicated program to do something like that again. That means governments get hurt because they don't have authority over their own people. It's much easier for extremists and even rogue countries to get control of WMDs and do potentially humankind-threatening actions. Now, our third and final contention is that it's the economic disruption. Too fast, too much, and too dangerously. I talked about the Industrial Revolution. The truth is this will displace many more jobs than that because most of our jobs are routine and autonomous. Most of our jobs are from accounting to factory work can be done better by robots. And the massive inequality resulting from most jobs being destroyed and our inability of society to adapt fast enough because of Moore's Law can mean social instability, collapse of countries in some cases, and potential wars that can seriously imperil the human species as a whole. So the truth is, in the end, when we look back at today's debate, our power should be in our hands. And having developed the ability to destroy our species, we are now giving it over to people who don't even care. And that's why I want you to vote for the affirmation today. Thank you so much.
Okay, hello everyone. The microphone doesn't seem to be a problem to me, but can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. First off, yeah, just thank you all for being here. It's been a great day, and I hope you have a good time. Okay, so with that, let's begin. Technology. Many think that it's simply for the nerds, for the people who stay inside their houses and program all day long. But in reality, it's our future. It's the very thing that's going to let us reach the stars and uncover the world's deepest buried secrets at the bottom of the ocean. So why should we let all of this innovation, all of this potential, go because of the simple risk that it might pose? As human beings, there are always going to be risks in what we do. But the question is, are their wars going to be any better? And the answer for today is going to be yes. Now, first, I'm going to be going over my case, and then I will be addressing my opponent's case. We agree that today's value should be net benefits, essentially looking to be the most amount of good for the most amount of people. Now, our first contention is essentially about security. There is a new home security line, actually, where it tracks the habits of the person in the house And if there is some sort of deviation from these habits and some sort of strange occurrence going on within the household, it will alert to a robbery, in effect preventing crime and preventing potentially serious adverse effects to that family. Another thing, on a broader scale, in terms of cyber threats. This has been cropping up lately, especially with the advances in technology. But with these threats have come better and better ways to prevent them, in effect outpacing the problems that are actually coming. For example, there's IT security, where artificial intelligence can react significantly faster to cyber threats and evolve, actually, the more that is attacked in order to more effectively prevent them. Another example is that it will, in real time, start blocking up and patching out firewalls that have been breached. I'll take your POI in a minute, if you don't mind. Okay. Now, so essentially, it will be blocking the firewalls that have been breached in real time in order to make it more efficient and protect information that will be valuable to nations and, in fact, save the lives that could have been lost due to this breach in information. Now, another example would be police brutality. Lately, police brutality has been a big thing on the headlines. And with artificial intelligence, it will be a lot easier to detain criminals and people without actually having to hurt them, because a robot can take several shots and effectively and safely detain criminals while not harming them at all. So in this sense, we are essentially saving their lives and saving information of countries, as well as even trying to protect criminals and all people in functioning society. Now, moving on to our second contention, and this is essentially about health beyond just home security. AIs have been explored in almost every field and every part of medicine, and they've actually found to be incredibly helpful. They can analyze 3D images of brains and hearts and more efficiently and effectively tell what's wrong with them, so the patient will not have as much time to deteriorate. As well as the fact that they are more easily to identify discrepancies between medications that patients receive and whether or not they'd be allergic, and react significantly faster than any doctor could. This efficiency is crucial to saving lives in the medical field, as well as to improving our own primary technology in medicine. As well as the fact that they can provide and become 24/7 aids to those in need of it, specifically elderly people and people with special needs. So here we see that it can help in the medical field and in everyday home life for those who need it. Now, moving on to my final contention, is essentially human ingenuity, space exploration, and deep sea exploration. With this new technology, we're going to be able to open new doors, and they can go these AIs can go so quickly that they can essentially provide an opportunity for us to find new types of chemicals, new elements, and explore things we never thought could have been possible. For example, space exploration would be significantly easier because we would not need to total on oxygen or food, as it will simply be a robot of artificial intelligence going on that space station. With this, we can advance human ingenuity, and essentially the human race. So by closing this door, we would effectively be stagnating in the technology that we have now and actually not allowing for any more advancements and evolution that is essential to us as human beings. Now with this, I'm going to be spending my last time going over my opponent's case, and if I have time, I will gladly take your POI. Now, my opponent has brought up the threats and the adverse effects that they suspect will be coming up with these AIs. However, there is a current a board working for artificial intelligence, which is essentially examining all of the adverse effects and doing their very best to try and resolve them as quickly as possible. So it's not as though this is being let run rampant. There are organizations that are currently trying to find solutions to all the risks and problems that they might pose. So this is not something that's not being addressed. It is actually being fixed right now. Now, they say that the greatest threat to human beings is technology. But I would contend that technology is actually going to be our greatest advantage and the best way that we're going to have to try and continue forward and save our planet. For example, with this logic, if our greatest threat is in fact technology, then we should stop trying to develop hydrogen fuel cells for cars. We should just maintain what we have. Because what might go wrong with these hydrogen fuel cells? Sure, they might save the planet, but what might be the adverse effects? We must keep looking forward to try and advance humans as a whole. And I would contend that it is not technology that is going to pose a risk to human beings, but rather human beings themselves. Human beings are probably going to be our end and our greatest demise, not technology. Technology might just save us. Now, he provides you with several examples that are going to be coming, such as the stock market collapse, and he said that these things, they went unregulated. We let them go by, we didn't watch over these artificial intelligence machines, we just let them make the decisions all on their own. Well, with our current technology, and since we're looking to potential benefits in the future, we're always going to be, fixing the problems that come up. Humans are, unfortunately, subject to doing things wrong sometimes. And I can tell you the problem here was not that so much the artificial intelligence, but that it was being implemented in an incorrect way and observed also in an incorrect way. In the future, we'll most likely rectify these problems. So, and essentially, this is not going to be a potential harm. It will actually be a potential benefit, as we will be regulating them more closely and solving these problems faster. Now, there are other contention here talking about self-regulation and the extreme amount of power putting in the hands into machines. However, there are 3 laws of robotics. The first is they will not allow human beings to injure themselves or injure human beings on their own as a robot. Secondly, they must obey orders given to them unless they are in conflict with the first law. And the third one is that it must protect its own existence unless it comes to conflict with the first or second law. Robots are easily programmable to do as we say and to follow along with what we're asking them to do, such as protecting our own lives and protecting our own existence. So as such, there's been contention about this whole problem with too much power. That's an issue with human beings, giving over too much power to something that is far too unknown, not so much with the potential of artificial intelligence. Lastly, they just talk about economy. However, first off, with the great amount of benefits and lives that will be saved with these, this will become almost non-existent in today's round. And secondly, jobs will be created in producing these artificial intelligence machines and watching over them. So in effect, that becomes irrelevant to today's round. So for all these reasons, I urge a strong vote in negation. Yeah, you can leave it again.
So you mentioned earlier in the speech that you have AI that are essentially evolving to meet new threats. How can you be sure that you have control over a machine? The machine is changing its purpose and its code on a basic level by itself without input from you.
Okay, well, first off, it's very easy to re-examine the new type of machine that is being created. That is what scientists are actually currently doing with several types of AIs. They are self-replicating AIs. They basically improve and advance upon themselves. It's actually quite easy to reprogram them and to re-examine the new benefits, and that can actually provide benefits for human beings themselves to see how the way we program things to re-evolve, which is actually might help human beings themselves in evolutionary advancements. Does that answer your question?
I need to ask, please, that there is silence in the auditorium while the speakers are speaking. It's out of respect for the speakers, and it's honestly letting the judges judge the debate as opposed to noise in the audience, please.
Is this good? Distance? Check, is like there, there. This one on? Oh, okay. All right, you ready? All right, starting my time now. All right, hello everyone, welcome to today's debate. I'm the second affirmation speaker. To write a roadmap for what I want to do in this speech, I'm going to basically get into an overarching observation, go into their case, and then go back to our case. Okay, so really on this observation, they really started their speech by saying, all right, there's always going to be risks for technology. There's always going to be risks for what we can do. And they went on to say that humans are what's going to destroy it, not technology. But that's almost our case. That almost really outlines the point that we're trying to make in today's debate, that right now, humans can't handle technology that is beyond our control, technology that self-replicates, that makes its own decisions, that simply put, humanity and the regulations that we have and the track record that we have as a species is simply put insufficient to handle the breadth of the threat that we face from AI. Now, getting into their case first. So their first contention is basically on a general issue of security. They talk about crime, cyber attacks, detain criminals easier, these 3 points. The idea here is that already under the status quo, humans can fix this with other measures. We're already employing measures that have been highly successful, such as body cameras. We are already employing methods against cyber attacks that don't involve AI. And already an increased monitoring of police has meant that criminal detention has greater effort and that lethal force is being used less. So already under the status quo, we see humans are fixing this themselves. But as good as AI can be applied, if you buy all the benefits that they provide, even though they're not unique, versus the status quo, what we're actually seeing here is very clearly that as good as they can be applied, or as well as they can be applied, they can also be used to abuse. The machine that is used to fight crime can just as easily be used by a government to monitor its civilians and put down unrest. And overall, we see that the opportunity to abuse, as we actually brought up in our second contention, and they really didn't address at all, and I'll be getting into that later, is really granting an absolute power and absolute dominance over people that people can use against other people. Well, I use the word people. But really the greatest threat of AI is not how people are going to employ it, but how they're going to be employed themselves when they're beyond our control, when they're past those basic uses that we can see coming in maybe the next few days, but rather decades and decades from now. Now, their second contention was basically that issue of health and how they can be used to be employed better than doctors. And the fact is that this really almost represents an argument that we made in our case. We really turn this point as really indicative of an overall threat that we see to humanity. The fact is that efficiency overall, this claim to efficiency, is going to lead to a mass replacement of jobs on a wide scale, where really most jobs that humans are capable of are not going to be accessible to humans, rather to AI. And the threat of this is incredible. Because really, when we actually weigh issues like how they brought up how these can be, or they brought up how jobs can be created, we see that already when you are replacing almost every single job, whether it's taxi cab driving, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's simply serving someone at a restaurant. The fact is that all these are on the verge of being replaced, and there's no amount of technology that can replace these millions and millions of jobs. And historically, we have seen that these jobs simply cannot be replaced by technology. It's not like everyone who's involved in manufacturing got a new tech job when those jobs were outsourced. I will take their reply.
Okay, so do you value lives or jobs?
I think that when you have a society in which no one works and there is no value of life, first off, that's already harmful. But when you have a society in which demand or consumption is really gone to nothing because people can't afford any products, then you have a society on the verge of collapse, and then a lot more lives are going to be lost than any kind of quality doctor can save. So already we see that the threat of this, when it's applied down a wider scale towards more jobs, is societal collapse. So the potential benefits are a marginal gain for society. The potential harms are that there will be no society. Now, their third contention is that of exploration. This is already non-unique. The status quo has probes that do the exact same thing, but they're controlled by humans. So really we see that all the points that they brought under this contention really have no weight in today's debate. Now, going into our case, basically our first contention was that AI is the greatest threat to humans. And they basically brought up this board that's trying to monitor risks and find solutions, that technology is good. And this kind of reminded me of something else, the midnight clock that's used to kind of measure nuclear risks. And I kind of see these boards as very similar in the sense that both are trying to stop an impending crisis, something that can be incredibly damaging to human society, but functionally neither have much control. And when something goes wrong, when a nuclear detection switch, a dead man switch detects and launch, nothing that clock says can save us, and nothing that this unnamed board is monitoring can save us either. And the fact is that technology being good is not actually inherent. The fact is that as we have self-replication, as we stop having human control over these beings that are smarter, better, more efficient than us, the fact is that our entire idea that we can re-examine or reprogram is flawed. And the fact that our regulation is already behind, when we consider technology moving at the pace it is according to Moore's law, it's getting that much worse, that much harder to control, and already these beings will be outside of our control. And as for the robotics laws, they're really not employed, and no one has to actually follow along with them. No one is getting punished for not following robotics laws. So when we've recognized that we've refuted all of the refutations on our first contention, that AI is the greatest threat to human society, we have to consider that's the smallest things, the things that we think are under our control, the things that we think can be controlled easily, that are actually the greatest threat to us in general. And already the risk of nuclear weapons, when we really consider that people like Elon Musk are saying that AI can be far more dangerous than nukes. That's the kind of weight that this has to have in this debate. That's the kind of gravity with which we must consider the threat of AI. Now, our second contention was basically giving power to extremists and rogue governments. They didn't really address this point that basically these simple programs can be used to topple governments similar to nuclear weapons, that basically that these can be abused so easily. This is a point that also applied into their case, flowed across in today's debate. This is a huge destabilizing effect on modern society. And our third and final contention, that jobs can will be replaced basically and the economy will collapse. Instead, this will create jobs when every single major sector of the economy from the middle class has been replaced by technology, as we're actually seeing will happen from AI, we said those jobs cannot be collapsed, or cannot be replaced, that the economy will collapse, and that the threat to human society overall can really almost not be measured. Vote aye.
Hello, everyone. Okay. So before I begin, I would like to thank everyone for this amazing opportunity and have a shout out to Windsor High School for hosting this amazing tournament that every single team looks forward to every year. So thank you very much. And thank you for everyone who has competed, and also to my fabulous opponents and my partner and our coach, Mrs. Williamson. So thank you to everyone, and I hope you enjoy the event. Alright, so first of all, I'm going to be going over our opponent's affirmation case, and then we'll be going over the negation and looking at some refutations that have been made and how we can fix those. So their first contention is essentially that the greatest threat to humanity is artificial intelligence. However, as my partner brought up, technology could really be our greatest advantage in the long term. And if they're saying, well, if technology is a really big threat, then how about we stop doing surgery on people? How about we stop trying to lower emissions? How about we stop making fuel cars? How about we stop trying to do electric cars? How about we stop the war on terrorism? Because all of these vital elements involve technology. And if they're looking at technology on the basic premise of things like computers and being able to analyze 3D images, these are exactly what is helping our society as a whole. This is what is saving lives. This is what we're able to do implants with, to keep hearts alive longer. These are all things that are insanely important and been developed to aid humanity. And so technology as a whole and technological advancements are very important if we were to look at it as a whole and in the long term. Now they go on to talk about, and they bring up the Soviet Union in 1980, and they say, well, the dead man's switch was a really big problem. And yeah, absolutely, I definitely see their faults with that. However, this stems directly from inherency within humanity. I'd love to take your point, but could I do it in a couple of minutes? Great, thank you. This is inherent within humanity to want greed and to want power. This is not a problem with artificial intelligence itself or with technology at all as a whole. So this does not actually pertain here. Now they talk about how this could be self-replicating and how this is something very dangerous, can get out of control. However, I'd like to remind you of the 3 laws of robotics. The first being that they cannot injure humans or allow humans to come to harm, and the second to essentially back these up. And so what we're seeing is that they're not going to be harmful to humans simply because they are not designed to do that. They are designed to do the exact opposite for a good purpose as well, because as they do mention, technology is very powerful and can be used to do a lot of different things, whether they are good or whether they are bad. However, these programs are designed specifically to help human ingenuity and to make sure that we grow as a society rather than the other way around. Now, if we were to be going to their second contention concerning giving power to extremists and rogue governments, really talk about how these could be used to give too much power to bad people, essentially. However, they cannot do this because of the 3 laws, because they cannot hurt humans. So, for example, if a terrorist was given this and said, kill these 5 people, that wouldn't be able to happen with these machines and with this artificial intelligence, because it simply isn't possible because it is programmed within how they work. Yes, I'll take your POI.
Who programs these robots, and what would stop a terrorist from programming a robot otherwise?
Okay, very good question. So essentially what we're seeing here is 2 things. First of all, the people who would be programming these artificial intelligence machines would be those high up in government and those who are looking out for society's welfare. Now, as you point out, there is a small problem with that, which is that it can get into the hands of people who do not have society's best interests at heart. However, what we can also see is that they can be reprogrammed to make sure that no harm comes to humans, so it's an easily fixable situation. I hope that answers your question. All right, so I'm sorry, I'm not going to take your POI right now. I'm going to get through this. All right, so their third contention concerns economic destruction, and they say, well, all of these jobs are going to be destroyed, and there's going to lead to inequality. However, as my partner brought up, we're actually going to be seeing booming job growth within this industry. Because of what we can do, we still need people to work on machines, we need people to manufacture them, we need people to make sure they're running properly, we need them to program them. Essentially, it's going to create a whole other industry that could not have been created otherwise. the brightest minds in the world are going to be working on these machines, and if nothing is greater than that, I don't know what is. They say that we'll be replaced, but really we'll just be helped. I'm not going to take it right now. All right. Okay, so going into our negative case and some reputations that have been made. So once again, to remind us all of the value, we're looking at net benefits. So how we can do the most good for the most amount of people. In this case, we're looking at humanity as a whole and potential benefits that could come from it. So not necessarily benefits that we're seeing right now, but what can be changed and what can be fixed in order to provide the maximum number of benefits in the future. Now, our first contention concerns security and how we can track people's habits within a house to ensure that robbers are not present. Now, this is very interesting because basically what it does is it makes sure that you're safe within your own home. So it adds that extra level of safety. Or maybe it's just because I've been watching Criminal Minds too much the past week. However, if we were to look to the second point on here, which is cyber attacks, essentially they can find issues where they've been penetrated and then fix them. So really, the more problems that we see with them, the better they become. So they are self-fixing. They don't have issues. So once they have one issue, it will not happen again because they are intelligent enough to fix themselves. Now, if we were to, they say to this contention that, well, we're already employing enough methods that are beneficial in order to stop things like police brutality, to stop cyber attacks, and to increase security. However, we're actually not, because of all of the latest police brutality issues that we've had within the United States. And really what we're seeing here is that we're not able to combat some problems. And that's okay, because our human ingenuity has allowed us to find something that will. And that is something that will carry us for centuries and generations into the future, because it's something that we're able to do and say, look, maybe we can't solve everything, but we can sure try and find something that will. Now, our second contention concerns health benefits and how we can look at 3D images of brains and hearts and analyze them. We can figure out what medicines to give people. So for example, if they're allergic, we can figure out what they're allergic to and then fix that problem. And essentially they say, well, this is indicative of a threat because all of these jobs can be replaced by technology. But however, this is not the case because that's not what we're doing. We're not replacing jobs. We're aiding how well they're able to perform, how well surgeons are able to perform. So that one little cut that might kill someone won't happen with artificial intelligence. That one faulty move won't happen. And these are the small cases, the personal cases that we have to look at that will determine who we are as a species and as humanity. If we're able to step down and say, look, we messed up, so let's program something that will be very beneficial. So essentially here, we're saving lives, and we're looking at lives over jobs, because the most basic right is that to life. And if someone is living because of a machine, then dang, that's pretty good. Our third contention concerns human ingenuity, which has not been addressed, and thus we negate.
Okay, is everyone ready? Okay, I'm going to say that's a yes, and let's begin. So, fearing a new age is essentially what leads to observation. It's a perfectly natural thing to do. When you're on the cusp of a massive breakthrough with new things you've never seen before, it's totally natural to be scared of losing them, and fearing some sort of nuclear war. It's what happens with every great advancement, and it's what happens with every new leap to a new age and a new generation. But I want to ask you, what if, for some reason, we humans stopped advancing? We stopped making new technology, and we just stagnated where we were. One of the weirdest things about people is that we keep going because we have some sort of hope for the future. We hope maybe there will be complete equality, complete justice, and that's what keeps us moving and implementing new acts and new types of legislation that will try and make this a reality. So in this essence, we really can't stop with this technology because we want the reality of a new and better and brighter future. And if we let ourselves be scared of this, of coming into being, then there's really no way that humans are going to advance at all. So with this, I'm going to go over some of the points that are really important in today's round, I'm going to be addressing and hopefully crystallizing today's round. Now, we're only like 3 or 4 points really that the affirmative still has standing. First off is really the idea here of humans, and this is something they kind of toted in their last speech, was that humans can't handle this currently. But I'd like to point out that in the wording of the resolution, it says potential benefits. So whether or not we couldn't handle it in the past and whether or not we can't handle it now, it's still irrelevant to the resolution because we're talking about what could happen, what could be, and how we humans will advance and adapt to this new technology. Of course, they also contradict themselves later on, saying, well, we're currently implementing these kinds of robotics in fields that I mentioned earlier about home security and other types of cyber walls. They said we're already implementing this, so we don't need more. Well, if we're implementing it, it clearly is working, and clearly we've deemed it to...
Point of order, this is an entirely new refutation of a point that was actually about the non-uniqueness because there are human man probes. And basically, they would have had to bring this up in their other speech in order for it to weigh in today's debate, but because they didn't bring it up at all, they can't suddenly address this in their last speech.
Okay, because I don't want to waste your time, I'll let that point fall, but I'll continue to weigh and prove exactly how the negative can still win even without this point. Now, moving on. So the next point here, as my partners already talked about, the whole thing with jobs, this seems to be really their only last line of offense. And it really, as we've already demonstrated multiple times, is essentially, first off, jobs will be created with this new economy. And even if jobs are lost, the fact that we'll be saving lives, advancing humanity as a whole, uncovering secrets that we could never know about the universe, basically coming into the world that is science fiction, that will be minimal. Because we can't stop human advancement and evolution. This loss of jobs also will be compensated for by new jobs in this new industry, and we won't know what happens in the future. So, moving on. They are, the only actually last thing they have really is how about people, and how this will give people absolute power. But even if this didn't happen, it could be regulated. For example, nuclear warfare. This has been one of the greatest scares we've had in terms of new technology, but we are taking advances to try and regulate it, such as the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Act. So clearly things won't be going derailing completely, as well as the fact that even if someone could possibly get their hands on it, the benefits of this would be so entirely great and leading to a whole new world that it once again would remain irrelevant and essentially minimal. So what this round really boils down to is, should we take the leap, knowing possible risks and try and advance human beings, or should we stay behind, stay where we are, and maybe hope that good things will come if we really just stop advancing? And the answer to this would be, well, clearly we need to move forward, because that's the way we work, and that's the only way that we're actually going to be able to achieve something for a better society, for better people, for better lives. Now, because the value of today's round is net benefits, it's important to see who can be providing, once again, the most amount of good for the most amount of people. And essentially what we can see is that the negation is the only one who's going to be able to do this. Because of our home security systems, and the cyber threats, the self-evolving technology, and because of the way that they can essentially help with health, they can better analyze hearts, brains, because they've already been tested in every field of medicine, and they have been deemed to be sufficient and actually have learned, or have actually improved efficiency significantly in hospitals, have saved lives, have improved to detect minimal differences between medicine and people, preventing adverse effects. We can see here that it prevents crime, it saves lives, which is clearly impacting back to net benefits, which is really improving life and standard of living for just about everyone. And our final contention, perhaps the most important of all, is really just human evolution and ingenuity, something they have not effectively negated, something that even job loss can't stop. So because I believe in the advancement of humanity, and because I believe that human lives ought to be saved, and because I believe we shouldn't stop just because of some risk in the future, I urge a strong vote in the negation.
Okay, so ready? One last time, thanks everyone for coming today. This is arguably my favorite debate topic in my entire life, except for that one about killing Hitler, which was better. But seriously, this one's really, really, really amazing. Thank you. Thanks, opponents. Last speech of the debate. Hi, everyone. Thanks one more time. So as the final affirmation speaker today, supporting the resolution that artificial intelligence ultimately has greater potential threats than possible benefits, I want to start off with an observation, and I'll go straight into a couple of voter issues, each of which independently wins us a debate. Observation is, I love Isaac Asimov. Isaac Asimov's cool, but the 3 laws of robotics aren't an actual thing. We don't actually do that. That's in his books, and they're great books, and there's some science competitions, I think, where they do that, but that's not a thing that exists in real life. So let me just jump into the voter issues, though. I have a couple of voter issues. My first voter issue is, our opponents are Luddites. See, I'm a little bit annoyed about this, because if there was anyone in the world who believes that technology is awesome, that would be me. I love technology. Technology is really cool. And technology, at its core, is giving us power. Technology gives us power over the oceans, and the atoms, and our skies, and our lives, and everything, all of nature around us. And I believe in technology because I believe that human beings can make good decisions about it. That ultimately, human beings will do good more often than they will do harm. Here's the thing. Our points say we should advance because this is a new age, and new ages are great. And we should go ahead because we'll figure it out. Do you know why they're Luddites? Because they're going ahead, but they're not adapting to the new age. They're not acting like this is a new age. They're acting like we should deal with the threats of a new age with the tools of an old one. And that's really going through their case. We look at their defenses of why isn't this going to be a problem? They say, oh, it's because we'll regulate it. States will be able to fix it and find every single person who's developed a virus that can take out our stock market or self-replicator that can destroy our plastics. We'll just find them all and we'll get rid of them and it'll be all good. That's the type of thought that belongs in the old age. And you know, that's why I'm scared. I'm scared because in this new age, everyone has that power. I'll get more into some other issues. I'm scared because in this new age, we're not making the decisions anymore. The robot decides whether or not we operate, even according to them. The robot decides when we call the police. And when we give this one skill to robots, we can do almost anything else. But when we give this one skill of making those decisions without adapting and regulating in a new way, that's when we have a danger. And so the truth is, we're not going to be able to control them. We never have been able to control our technology this well, and we've been survived mostly because the people are mostly good. But now we're giving that over to robots. They have no reason to suppose why we will have 100% control. And the reason why you should vote for the affirmation on this is it only takes one mistake. It only takes one 50-cent transistor in the back of Norad's computers, and then the two senators visiting the building at that time are told, I'm sorry guys, you need to move, we're going to direct a nuclear war now. It only takes one mistake, and as we said already, the regulation is not catching up. The regulation is not coming. The current regulation we have right now, even under their case, is defensive at best and a joke. And no matter if you believe any other thing, even if we go to space and develop new technologies and stop all racism with AI, it doesn't matter if we don't have a world to save afterwards. And that's the first reason why I should vote for the affirmation. Second voter issue is about industries, about our economy. And here's the thing. Our points say they'll create an industry in robotics. Okay, awesome. We say we'll lose the industries of accounting, manufacturing, farming, finance, most of everything that people do in Indonesia and China and other developing countries which don't have robotics. They say the brightest minds will have this new industry. Great. The brightest minds aren't the only people in the world. And the rest of the people, the other 99%, they're going to be a little bit ticked off that everything is falling out from under them. Judge, the truth is, I don't fear social change as a whole, but I do fear social change that's incredibly fast with no regulation or control over it. And social change that goes that quickly has the potential to destroy societies. Has hundreds of millions of jobs for everyone. Has the potential to provoke war and conflict and destruction on a scale we can't even imagine. And that's why I am worried, is because for the first time, human beings are regulating by saying, we'll just program the robots to be good. That doesn't work. That leads me to my third and final voter issue, which is about power. We win because under their case, they give everyone power. And let me talk about that. They brought up something I thought was really interesting. They said, why are nuclear weapons not a threat? Because of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Act. Nuclear weapons are powerful. So let's be careful about who we give that power to. Here's the funny thing. In their case, they give that power to anyone. Because AIs are the first WMD that a person can make on their laptop in their home. Because AIs are the first WMD that North Korea is just as good at making, as we've recently seen, as the United States. Because AIs are the first WMD that everyone has. And even if humans are on the whole good, which I do believe they are, it only takes one. It only takes one. And we are all in really deep trouble. It only takes one microbe. It only takes one AI. Go to that, please. Thank you.